You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is July 8th, 2026, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing you the people and organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. And we are also bringing you news stories from a liberty perspective. So this week we're going to talk a little bit about the 250th and kind of what that means in the sense of in light of the SCOTUS ruling on birthright citizenship. I'll talk a little bit about sort of issues of immigration, patriotism, and the flag, and so those will be sort of some of the issues we're going to be talking about throughout the show. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to our panel. With us today, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So we always start out with the Liberty quote of the day, but before we actually hit that, I just wanted to give a shout out to the people at Freedom Fest. It would have been nice to be there, but it's not in the cards this year, but that is actually starting today. So if you happen to be in the Las Vegas area, Freedom Fest is a good conference to go to, and we've been there ourselves a few times. So anyways, we're talking about America's 250th, and we're going to talk about SCOTUS and the birthright citizenship thing, but with the quote of the day, I thought it would be interesting to talk about an Adam Smith quote, and it's not specific to issues of immigration, but one of the reasons I wanted to talk about Adam Smith a little bit on the show is because that was the same year that we put out our Declaration of Independence. That is the same year that he published his Wealth of Nations in 1776. And so it's sort of his 250th anniversary on that book as well. And one of the things that I found kind of interesting, it always seemed kind of, like a coincidence maybe that was published right around the time of the founding of this country, or at least the declaring of independence. And it turns out it's not really as much of a coincidence as you might think, because, in his works, he was actually paying attention to what was going on here in the colonies as he was trying to understand why it is that, some nations prosper and others don't. So this was kind of like a little bit of a laboratory. And the people here, like Thomas Jefferson, were actually reading his books. So they were following his writings, and so there's kind of a virtuous circle going on there, and it's not really the complete coincidence that it might seem like on the face of it. And so I did want to read the quote about the invisible hand, because we've talked about that a bunch on the show, and in fact one of the people associated with the show who used to do some of the background stuff and still does some of the after show work, and that's James Just, and we always refer to him as our invisible hand because he always helped keep the show going along. But we here's a quote that kind of gets to the point of what the invisible hand is. And so he says, every individual neither intends to promote the public interest nor knows how much he is promoting it. He intends only his own security, and by directing that industry in such a manner as its produce may be of the greatest value, he intends only his own gain. He is in this, as in many other cases, led by an invisible hand to promote an end which was no part of his intention. And I mean, that really gets down to the whole point of, I guess, getting away from big central planners over the economy. He's talking about the ways that people through their own actions will wind up serving each other, that will figure out the best ways to serve one another, as long as we really have systems of property rights set up so that we can do these things. And it's not really a coincidence that kind of thinking was happening at the moment they were thinking, hey, maybe we don't really need a king to be guiding all of our decisions in an economy. And of course, this follows a little bit from the, oh gosh, maybe I can find that. Is that, darn it, I had that up just a little bit ago. Maybe I'll find that while we're talking, but there's the famous quote about the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. Yes. And that flows right along this. They just didn't say invisible hand in that particular quote. But I'll find that. But Leon, while I'm trying to find that, what are your thoughts on this quote?
I think this quote makes some very important points, that that invisible hand, though it never intends to do good or to do social good, we can say, always end up doing exactly that. Because when you really think about it, and if I may get into a personal anecdote here, Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, I have met neither man. They have done nothing in my life that I can think about in terms of meeting them, in terms of having a beer with them or anything like that. I do not know these guys at all, other than what I've read about them. But yet, these two men have had such a large impact upon my life. They have certainly increased the productivity of my professional life, because Bill Gates gave us Windows and gave us Office, which I have used a lot during my professional career, and I still use it to some extent. Steve Jobs gave us the prototype to this, the iPhone, and it's amazing what these two men, working for their own interests, trying to make as much profit as they can, or as much gain as Adam Smith have said. These men working towards that goal of making as much gain, as much profit as they can, yet have done so much social good, in the sense that my life became more productive because of these men. And this is the point of capitalism. Capitalism always ends up doing social good, because even the bad businesses that are out there, who may fool some people sometimes, eventually the invisible hand will catch up with them and they'll go out of business, and those quote unquote good businesses shall remain around. So the point about all of this, social good is always achieved through the invisible hand, capitalism at work. You know, I remember one night, I had the boys with me, and they were pretty young at the time, and we got lost in Aqua Arena. We came in one door and we couldn't figure out which door. We went out of the parking lot to go get back into the parking. Well, we got back into the parking lot, but it was the wrong parking lot. We couldn't remember which door we came in to see an indoor soccer game. But you know, all of that time, it was before we had iPhones in our hands, and I couldn't call my wife to tell her that we were lost. We were lost for about an hour. We couldn't find my van. And by the time I got home, my wife was so distressed, because, of course, she was wondering what happened to her husband and her children. Now, if we were in the days, if that incident, that very same incident, occurred during the days of the iPhone, I could have easily had my phone, call my wife, tell her, hey, don't worry, we're going to find the vehicle. It might take me a little while. Just give me a little time, and she'll be okay. But I couldn't do that. But Steve Jobs changed that when an incident like that occurred to me now, I don't have to have my wife at home worried to death about me or her children. And these are the kind of things, the kind of social good that these men and women in some cases can achieve by seeking their own personal interests. And this is what the quote is trying to say. They seek their interests, and they achieve a lot of social good in the process. Now, if you compare that to socialism, you see socialism is no match for capitalism in terms of the social good that they can achieve.
Well, and think about too, when you use the example of that iPhone, because it's more complicated even than just Steve Jobs and his iPhone. Somebody had to produce the glass that goes into that iPhone, and somebody had to produce the case, somebody had to produce the code.
Yes.
Although now AI may be producing some of that code, but somebody has to produce the AI to produce the code.
Produce the code, yes.
Right. But I mean, all of these things are it becomes this web of cooperation that happens throughout the world where these pieces are coming together and nobody is calling the shots. There's no visible government hand. Well, sometimes a visible government hand gets in the way and stops the invisible hand.
Exactly. Yes.
But most of the most of this stuff is just happening because people are responding to incentives, and people are responding to these incentives through this through price signals. And that's what so many people just don't understand, that tremendous amount of information that is flowing just through the simple act of putting a price on something.
Exactly.
And every component has a price associated with it, and all these people are deciding what they're going to do based upon those prices. And it's all cooperation because it's not people being forced. I know socialists like to imagine if they have to go to work for somebody, that's forced. But I mean, choosing to go to work for that person. Right? And I mean, you could choose not to, and then they say, well, it's forced because he won't give me food. But I mean, that's the point. You know, it's a virtuous system in the sense that the incentive is for everybody to do something to serve each other, so that and I think I found the other quote here that really says it a little bit more poetically, but it doesn't say the invisible hand, which is why I didn't put this one in here. But because I really wanted to get at the invisible hand. But it says, it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own self-interest. We address ourselves not to their humanity, but to their self-love, and never talk to them of our own necessities, but of their advantages. Right? And I mean, if you think about it, I mean, that's what you do when you go in for a job interview. You're telling the business what you can do for them. And when they ask you if you'll work for them, they're telling you what they'll do for you if you go work for them. And it leads to that thing that Stossel likes to talk a lot about on his show called the double thank you, you know, which doesn't really occur when you go to the DMV or other places. I don't see a lot of people, you know, extremely happy when they're dealing with the government. You know, when they take your taxes, I don't, you know, I've never sent a thank you letter to the IRS after.
Neither have I.
And I don't think they've sent a thank you to me, although maybe there's some auto-generated thank you that some computer is. And you know, that's the crazy thing too, is you look at a welfare system, and that's one of the broken pieces of it, because the recipients often aren't in a position to thank anybody, right? Because if you were giving charity, and then that person would say go to a church or wherever the charity was coming from, and the church or whoever would evaluate that person's need and if they could help them. And when they help them, the person receiving the help would say thank you. We don't have that. It's like people expect this stuff from the government, which is, you know, just shows you the sort of the moral depravity of the entire system of having a central planner and trying to outsource our morality, like a lot of people do with you know, ideas of sort of philanthropy and compassion. You miss that. If you're not reaching into your own pocket to do that, then it completely breaks the system, because you've lost the system of analysis where people are deciding what makes the most sense of who to give to and why, and for people who get that help to be thankful for the help. You know?
Exactly. I mean, compassion is a critical part of the whole capitalist system, in the sense that even some of these large companies, sure, they become quite wealthy in the capitalist system, but they do a lot of charitable work too. And they do, you know, sometimes I don't even like the organizations they give money to, but they do give a lot of, even in terms of charity and having shown compassion for their fellow man. But that, all of that comes out of the capitalist system. Whereas the socialist system is all based on, you know, you introduce a little bit of morality. I'm not going to go too off base here. But in the Bible, in the 10th commandment, it clearly says that we should not covet the stuff or anything that our neighbor owns, and the socialists build a whole system based on coveting, because they sit around and they get entitled to my labor or to your labor. They expect us to go to work so their standard of living could be maintained. Of course, they filter it through the government, and the government is going to take their cut of it, because and only about 20 cents out of the dollar will end up in the hands of the recipient. I mean, that it's such a broken system, and it's such an immoral system that is unbelievable. That is, it keep on existing, and it seems to be on the rise right now. But the capitalist system is superior in terms of the social good it does. And you're so right about the price signals and all that into the making of any product that you can think about, any useful product. I mean, Milton Friedman once gave a very good example about a pencil, a simple pencil. He said there's no one in the world who knows how to make this pencil, because there are so many components of that pencil. You think about the eraser on the top. You think about the little piece of metal that holds the eraser in place.
Barrel.
Have the wood case and the pencil that comes from the rubber and all these sort. And he was talking about all these different things. But this little simple pencil. But it takes a whole bunch of people, just like you say, cooperating and eventually making this pencil comes out at the end. Okay? But a whole ton of people went into making that pencil. And we don't even know that, and we're not even aware of it. And that was Friedman's very important point, very important lesson about price signals and cooperation in getting any worthwhile product completed and placed on the market.
And to be fair, the first place I heard that too was from Milton Friedman, but Milton Friedman got that from a guy named Leonard Reed. So because Leonard Reed wrote the essay "I Pencil." And it is in fact, there's a wonderful video out there, and maybe I'll see if we can get permission to show it one of these days, because it is like about 3 or 4 minutes long. So it's a little bit long just to show it in its whole, but you can't not show it in its whole. It's such a wonderful a video that just goes through that whole thing. Milton Friedman spent about, I don't know, maybe 40 seconds talking about it in Free to Choose. And it was really powerful just hearing Milton Friedman talk about it in 40 seconds. But seeing this video that was put together, it was really quite powerful, I thought. And so I definitely like to show. But that does bring up an issue too, that, getting into our discussion on immigration. I mean, that's a lot of what is kind of screwed up in the immigration system now, is that so many people are coming and they think they're getting something, right? It's not the immigration of 100 years ago or something, where a person would show up looking for how they could serve people here and in turn be served by them, right? I mean, showing up to do a job. And, it's kind of like the person who maybe shows up to mow your lawn. In that case, that's a little more righteous than the person who, say, shows up in Minnesota or New York, just gets free housing, food cards and everything else, right? I mean, this is, and so this is where that system starts to break down a little bit. And I did want to, I guess, since you mentioned Milton Friedman, I'll bring this up now, but this is the quote we often used here. And it says, "There's no doubt that free and open immigration is the right policy in a libertarian state. But in a welfare state, it's a different story. The supply of immigrants will become infinite." And we've certainly discussed this, and me and Leon, we're not quite on the same page, but we're close on this. We just think it's we're not sure that the incentives will ever be right with government to get rid of that welfare state to be able to get more free, more open immigration. But that said, there was a video that I had, and I wasn't going to show it in this order, but since we're here, I think this is good. Nick Shirley was recently in Ireland, and he interviewed some migrants who have come to Ireland from some Middle Eastern countries. I think this one was from Jordan, I think. And it absolutely shows what Milton Friedman is showing here, because he asks them how much money that Ireland is giving the guy. And it's a short clip, but here we go. I think this is pretty instructive.
How much money do they give you?
Every week, I'm married. I have 3 daughters, my children. I take same €500 in 1 week.
So every week the Ireland government gives you $500?
Yeah.
And you, where are you from?
He coming with me.
How many people came with you to Ireland?
No, 9. 9. 9.
9 people came with you here to Ireland.
9 families. But after me coming also maybe 30 families from Jordan, and Lebanese.
30 more families.
So 30 more, but that's the thing, right? I mean, this is exactly what Milton Friedman said. In a welfare state, the story is different. The supply of immigrants will become infinite. And that's the problem that we were seeing under Biden's open borders. They've got relatively open borders in most of the European countries. In fact, Europe is just finally, UK is finally starting to crack down a little because of the whole grooming gang rape scandal. But that's just because of that. They're still not cracking down because of this issue of what Milton Friedman said. And it depends too upon what migrants we wind up getting, right? Because if you have the migrants of a free market, it's much more virtuous because they're coming knowing that they're going to be doing something to serve other people as well as they get served themselves in response. But that's not necessarily true in a welfare state. You get people who have no intention of serving anybody else, but are just there to be served by the big
taxpayers,
government.
Taxpayers. Yes.
So,
I mean, the government might hand them the check, but it's the taxpayers serving them.
Yeah. So, well, anyways, this does bring up the issue, I guess, of in the United States we have kind of a peculiar system. And it has where if somebody is born here with no other tie, it's just simply born here, that's all that matters, then you automatically get to be a citizen. That's been the practice that we've had up until Trump came into office this last time and put out an executive order to say that's not how it's going to be anymore. But that runs into the constitutional 14th Amendment. And so that went to the Supreme Court recently. And it was all over this issue of anchor babies. And just to let you know that Trump has been talking about this ever since he ran for his first term. I'm going to play this little clip of him at a press conference where a reporter was offended that he was using that term anchor baby. But here we go. It's a very short clip.
Are you aware that the term anchor baby, that's an offensive term? People find that hurtful.
You mean it's not politically correct, and yet everybody uses it?
Look it up in the dictionary. It's offensive.
Give me a different term. Give me a different term. What else would you like to say?
The American-born child of an undocumented immigrant.
You want me to say that? Okay. No, I'll use the word anchor baby.
I'm saying,
excuse me.
Why do you have to use that phrase?
I'll use the word anchor baby.
So he wanted him to use this long, drawn-out term. But what he means by anchor baby is the sense that if a person brings comes here pregnant and has a child, suddenly that child becomes a citizen. And then that suddenly gives the parent an anchor into the country, right? Mm-hmm. Because now suddenly the parent has a child in the country. And that perverse incentive exists almost nowhere else in the world. There's only a handful of other countries that I think have something very similar, but most require the parent to have some kind of citizenship in the country, at least one of them.
Some sort of residency. Exactly. At least, yes.
Yeah, and maybe even something like a green card, a literal permit to work or something like that. Yes. But just the idea that somebody just happens to show up, have a baby, and boom, you get all the benefits of the welfare state. So anyway, so this went to the Supreme Court, and I'm just going to show a video clip of how that went, and so you can kind of understand where we're at.
A decision from the country's highest court to uphold birthright citizenship is welcome news to some in Minnesota.
Well, this impacts me directly.
Emily Rodriguez says she was born in Shakopee 18 years ago, granting her birthright citizenship. Her parents are originally from Mexico.
When they came here, they came from nothing.
This court ruling upholds her American citizenship.
This is my home. Mexico isn't my home. That's my parents' home. That's where they live, where they grew up. But the U.S. is my home, where I grew up and where I lived.
So how did the court split?
Supreme Court split 6-3 on the decision issued Tuesday, striking down President Donald Trump's executive order, which would have denied citizenship to children born to parents in the country illegally or temporarily. In a post on social media, the president called the decision, quote, too bad for our country, and urged lawmakers to act quickly to restrict birthright citizenship through legislation. Meanwhile, Governor Tim Walz backed the decision.
A fundamental principle of American, if you're born here, you're a citizen.
And so I did want to bring up this visual because I didn't have time to pull a video from it like we've shown in some of our other shows. But we had a immigration problem coming into Trump's second term.
To say the least, yes.
Biden had pretty much left the borders open. And this is this is an image of one of the migrant caravans coming from South America to the United States border. So all of these people coming, some of them pregnant, some of them just, with kids, some of them just working men. But, the idea that it was just kind of open borders and you can see them even coming with their flags showing, not showing American flags, but they're going to, for some reason, wanting to identify themselves with the countries they're coming from, I guess. But it's but
you want to come to America, but I want to keep my alliance to the country I'm coming from. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and so that's what we were facing as Trump came into office. And so one of the issues that didn't really make sense, because like I said, most countries don't think that idea makes sense, but we're kind of stuck with it. And because of what is in the 14th Amendment. And so let me bring that up, because we're coming close to our where we have to break for public access. So I don't want to get into another video yet. But our 14th Amendment, the first clause says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's a really, tricky clause right there. Are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. But that first part of the clause, that's what relates to this whole thing. Well, that's what we're arguing about, and that's what Trump was trying to work around with his executive order, and the court struck down his executive order saying this stands. And what wound up being an argumentative point of the whole thing, the minority decision in their minority opinion led by Clarence Thomas, he tried to make the argument that these people, essentially this was set up to deal with the issue of slavery after
for the emancipated slaves, yes.
Yeah, and so well, unfortunately, we're right up on the time, so I can't finish this history lesson for public access before we have to break. But we're going to talk a little bit about Dred Scott and get into some more of the issues of what happened with birthright citizenship here. But you'll have to catch the rest of the show on knuckleheadsofliberty.com. So go check us out there, and you can hear the rest of the discussion there, where we get into this issues of maybe good migrants versus bad migrants, and all kinds of issues about flags and everything else. So go check us out at knuckleheadsofliberty.com for the rest of the conversation. So anyways, getting back to this, subject to the jurisdiction they're in. So after the Civil War, the issue became, well, what's going to happen with all these people who are slaves? Because before the Civil War, the decision was the Dred Scott decision, and in that they said that no slave was a citizen, and that had been decided because there were some people who I can't remember for sure if they were
well, the slaves or descendants of slaves were not citizens.
Yeah, and these two people, former slaves who were living in a free state, they had petitioned to say that they were then citizens, and the court came back and said, no, you're not citizens. And that was the standard for at least former slaves. There were some other decisions, I think, where they had decided at one point. Let me see if I can find a little bit of that. Darn it, because I think they actually had different principles for different groups. So I think there was a citizenship principle called jus soli, I guess, where under this rule, most people born on the soil were automatically citizens, but that didn't apply to slaves. So it turned out that even though that this was kind of a loose understanding, but it wasn't really in the Constitution, right? That was the way things were supposed to be. And so we had this Dred Scott thing saying that, well, former slaves are not citizens, so what are we going to do? And some people literally wanted to take all the former slaves after the Civil War and just ship them back to Africa, which would pretty inhumane as well. So so the idea became, let's fix this with the 14th Amendment and say, hey, look, these people have just been freed. They should be citizens. They've spent their whole lives here. Why on earth would they not be citizens of this country? So so they made them citizens. Unfortunately, as you can see, the language isn't super clear, right? It says, and for the former slaves, they're clearly subject to the jurisdiction here. But is that really true for a person who say sneaks over the border or flies in on a plane and has a baby and then leaves? Are they really subject to the jurisdiction? And that was one of the arguments. And of course, Sonia Brown,
Sonia Sotomayor, and Ketanji Brown.
Ketanji Brown, yeah. So Ketanji Brown, yeah, that was one of her points, was to try and say, well, anybody who travels anywhere is subject to their jurisdiction if you try to steal something. So I don't know, that was the way she was looking at it. But anyway, so that is kind of what we're going back and forth here. And I guess unfortunately, because it would be nice if that were the law that we had, that we didn't have the birthright citizenship, that you have to have some standing in order to be qualified for birthright citizenship. That wasn't the decision of the court at the time. And several days ago, I guess, when this thing came through. And so that is the way it stands now. And so we are either going to need a constitutional amendment or perhaps some tweaks to laws such that subject to jurisdiction applies differently. So Leon, I don't know if you wanted to jump in. I've kind of had a long monologue there.
No, it's fine. I think the court made a very large error in the interpretation of the 14th Amendment in this matter. And if you look at our history on this matter, I think the court, for whatever reason, made a grave error. And I'll go back to Scalia's mantra of original intent, because if we can't use the original intent of whether it's the legislation or statutory legislation or whether it's a constitutional clause, if we cannot use the original intent, then there are no boundaries to the Constitution. There are no boundaries to what could or could not be done based upon that document. But if you look into the history of the United States, the Dred Scott.
Leon, before we get into the history, since you brought up Scalia, we do have a clip from Scalia. So let me play that real quick so people can really understand what you were just talking about. So
fair enough.
Well, look, in its most important aspects, most of which are in the Bill of Rights, I suppose, the Constitution tells the current society that it cannot do what it wants to do. It is a decision that the society has made that in order to take certain actions, you need the extraordinary effort that it takes to amend the Constitution. Now, if you give to those many provisions of the Constitution that are necessarily broad, such as due process of law, cruel and unusual punishments, equal protection of the laws, if you give them an evolving meaning so that they have whatever meaning the current society thinks they ought to have, they are no limitation on the current society at all.
So how does Scalia suggest that we make these interpretations?
So, I interpret it the way it was understood by the society at the time. And if you don't, now, this doesn't mean that there aren't new things that come up. Of course you have to apply the text to new phenomena, which the founding generation didn't even know about.
So, and this is kind of getting to what he calls originalism, and
yes,
the difference between being a living constitution and I hate using the term dead constitution because it's very much alive, but it's very hard to change, I guess. And some people who like to use the term living constitution like it to mean it can essentially, it's so alive, it can just change whenever the people change.
Exactly. It can mean a living constitution can mean any damn thing, quite frankly. We could get up one morning and find out that we don't even have free speech rights because the living constitution have now been interpreted to mean exactly that. But getting back to the issue at hand here, okay, about this immigration stuff. After the Dred Scott decision, obviously the courts had ruled in this horrible decision. It was a horrible decision, but the court ruled that descendants of slaves do not have citizenship in the United States. Okay, but at least they stated their position, and that was the law of the land at the time. Then we had the Civil War, and after the Civil War, well, we passed the 14th Amendment, and then blacks were given citizenship, which should tell us something about our history, that we needed something more than what we had to extend citizenship to Black Americans. The descendants of slaves. And this happened like in 1868 or something like that. But even further to that, there were American Indians living on reservations, and their children were not citizens. That didn't happen until 1924 in the I think it was the Indian Citizenship Act. So the point I'm trying to make with giving you all of this is that everybody in society recognized that this thing could not possibly apply to certain groups of people. And there is no way you can tell me the court today could say that given that history, that this thing applies, this birthright citizenship applies to foreigners, people who broke the law to get here. I mean, this is insane to think that this is the current interpretation. Now, they have now opened the door, and they're gonna the birth tourism that is going to continue to happen, obviously, and people are going to keep on trying to get here to have babies, and next thing you know, quote unquote Trump famous would anchor babies. But the fact that it matters is our history. I'm sorry.
Well, we do have a video to show on the birth tourism, but go ahead, Leon. Sorry.
Yes, but if the fact of the matter is, birthright citizenship was not a universal thing. It was clear from the constitutional amendments, from the legislation that was passed. It was not universal, and it certainly could not apply to foreigners, which is exactly what the court now said that can happen. So I think this is one day, maybe 10 years, 20 years from now, this ruling will be overturned. It might be a long time, but it's going to happen one day.
And this is where it's really tricky, because when we look at what Scalia was talking about there, I mean, this is where this whole thing, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, because that's the only thing here that potentially allows us to read the Constitution, or to read this amendment this way, because the way that Leon would like to read it right now, where we don't have birthright citizenship unless you are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, because it's, you know, if you just read it without that, then it sounds like, okay, well, you're born here, that's all that matters, right? And then so the question is what does that phrase mean? But if they had omitted this, then there's no way to read it any other way, and we couldn't change it just because, like Scalia is saying, just because we need it to be changed.
Yeah, right. True.
Change it. True. Yeah. Even and I hear some conservatives, and this scares me a little bit when I hear some conservatives say, they're saying it's not a suicide pact. Well, it is actually an agreement that it's not a suicide pact, and that we can change it. Right, but we have to go through a process to change it.
Exactly. I'm not for any all this damn nonsense. If it is to be changed, I want it done. If it can be changed through legislation, I want to change through legislation. I don't know if it could. It maybe it can be. Well, Brent Kavanaugh, he was in the majority, but he said that it could be done based upon what he said in his opinion, concurring opinion. He said that it could be done through legislation. Fine, well, if it could be done, let's do it through legislation. Or if it has to be done through a constitutional amendment, then let's do it through the constitutional amendment. But I'm not to any of these rogue people going out there and saying, well, you know, you're going to do this or you're going to do that. No. We have a process by which we're going to change these things. Let's go through the process.
Yeah. And this is the sad thing, right? I mean, I don't think the founding fathers could have envisioned that 100-something years later, after they wrote the 14th, that gosh, now what is it? 100 and what? Almost 40 years later, roughly after the 14th.
Yes.
They couldn't have imagined that you would have, essentially such a split country where one side was just kind of suicidal in their economic outlook, just like throwing the doors open and offering, a welfare state to people from other countries. I mean, in places like California, the nutty things that places like we're doing, we're giving free sex change operations to migrants. Right? I mean, that just shows that this is full-blown insanity. I mean, you just have to be a lunatic nowadays to be a Democrat. Right? but I mean, this is the stuff they're standing for in these blue states. It's absolute insanity. But the people who drafted this would have never believed it, right? I mean, we could get to there, which really shows how important contracts are, right? Because
indeed,
you have to realize that, hey, the person on that other side of the contract, they may be saying today, they may be a lunatic tomorrow. I need these words to be really clear. But anyways, let's watch a video real quick on this, where potentially this may be going, and the issue of birth tourism, because that's also an issue as well.
Just hours after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled against an executive order on citizenship signed by President Donald Trump on his first day back in office, he asked Congress to intervene. In a post writing, the Supreme Court upheld birthright citizenship, which is too bad for our country, but we can easily make it up in Congress through legislation, adding, no long and unwieldy constitutional amendment is necessary.
It's a threat to the rule of law and national security. We do need to address it. We're looking at all angles. If there's some legislative fix, we'll advance that immediately. If it's a constitutional amendment, as you know, it takes a little more time.
So what is the key concern that they're hoping this new legislation would address?
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson pointing to the trend of what many refer to as birth tourism, when pregnant women travel to the United States to give birth so their baby can have American citizenship. The Center for Immigration Studies estimates there are between 20 and 26,000 birth tourists per year. The vast majority from wealthy families, especially from China, where an entire industry has sprouted, and companies advertise on websites like this one, touting traditional food and comfortable accommodations with entire maternity home communities in California, though most do fly back home a few weeks later.
The problem is that these people, when they turn 18, they're going to be able to vote. They're going to be able to donate to political campaigns. They're going to be able to apply for sensitive government jobs.
So is anything already in the works?
But many legal scholars say, in fact, a constitutional amendment would be needed. But one Republican congressman is pushing a bill he's calling the Anchors Away Act.
Look, if you're not a U.S. citizen, if you're not a green card holder, and you have a child on U.S. soil, today that child would be a U.S. citizen. Under my bill, under my legislation, we fix that and go back to what our founders intended.
I'm not sure who that representative was. I thought he said Ogles or something like that.
I don't know who he is, to be honest. I don't know him. I don't know him.
Yeah, but obviously he's a Republican. So, but because they're trying to figure out a way to essentially alter that idea of jurisdiction, thereof. So they're trying to, I guess, get some language that makes it clear by Congress's perception what the jurisdiction is. So that's going to be a kind of a tight dance if it can work.
Yeah, well, it will have to meet constitutional muster, whatever the fix they're proposing. It will have to meet. Well, we already have the ruling, so the constitutional ruling. So they'll have to. It must meet the constitutional muster in terms of withstanding scrutiny.
Yeah. Well, so anyways, before we move on to some other aspects of all this immigration stuff, we showed in the first clip, or one of the first clips, Tim Walz. So we were showing a clip from Minnesota, and Tim Walz was giving his opinions. And you've got to wonder what's going on. Like we talked about how in California, I mean, literally migrants are coming here and getting free sex change operations and other things like that. Well, Tim Walz recently just pardoned a child molester so that he wouldn't be deportable. I mean, that's the kind of insanity that's going on in the Democrat Party. So I have a little clip right here to play on that.
Shocking isn't even a good enough word for it. Governor Walz, the governor of Minnesota, pardoned that man. He is convicted of sexual assault of a 10-year-old. And so what the governor did, because he's now been convicted of this, the federal government was going to remove him from our country, take a convicted child sex predator out of our country. What did Walz do? He pardoned him.
So why would Tim Walz pardon a immigrant child molester? Unless maybe he's trying to start one of his own grooming gangs because they were such a big hit in the UK.
Which means that the federal government's authority to remove him from our country then is compromised because he's not convicted anymore.
This is such a problem here, obviously. I mean, DHS says this decision could now prevent his removal.
Yeah.
And the department writing on X, quote, Governor Walz's pardon shielded this child rapist from removal from our nation. This is the type of disgusting criminal sanctuary politicians are shamelessly protecting.
And that 10-year-old sex offender, or the sex offender who attacked this 10-year-old child is now back in Minnesota. He's
walking the streets.
He's
So this is what we're dealing with right now, right? With Democrats, there's no good faith in any of this stuff, and it does very much feel like they are trying to gain immigration, or I mean, voting, issues going on here. They're trying to make it legal in many Democrat jurisdictions for migrants to vote in local elections, but the rules are so crazy in most of these places that nobody can tell who's voting for what. So you get these people on the rolls locally, and they very well could be voting, in national elections, just because
Exactly.
the rules are so sloppy. I mean, the Trump administration has been trying to get in there and at least have voter ID with the SAVE Act, so there's some way to go back and see if the people who voted literally had the right to vote, and Democrats don't even want that. So it's nuts. It's funny. They are the party of bureaucracy, and they will throw a million rules at you that you have to jump through and pay all kinds of fees for. But then when it comes to the Voting Rights Act, or not the Voting Rights Act, rather the Save America thing for voter ID, then they say an ID costs money. We can't let people have to do that.
certain people will be marginalized. We can't have that. No.
Yeah,
we know. These people are beyond disgusting. These same Democrats who are now yelling about people being deported, like in the case of Tim Walz, yelling about people being deported because they're here illegally, people being deported for whatever reason. Well, they shouldn't be here in the first case, regardless of whether they've committed crimes or not. But the fact of the matter is, why are these people so intent of keeping the 10, 15, 20 million people who are here illegally? Why are they so intent of keeping them in the country? There's one reason and one reason only. They're looking for votes. And they don't care about the cost of that, because some of the crimes that these people are committing are horrendous. So the cost to America we have a crime problem in ourselves, but we don't need to add foreigners coming into this country and committing crimes, and nobody wants to do anything about it. Tim Walz is pardoning a child rapist. So you know why? Because he might get deported. What insanity is this? The governor of a state is supposed to be chief law enforcement officer in that state. Just like we have one here. We have a weak ass governor here with the same kind of mentality. The fact of the matter is, these people have no right to be here. Anybody walk across the border are invading our sovereignty. They have no right to be here. And the laws on the books at this point in time is that they are subject to deportation, and they should be. They should be deported. But we have these vote-grabbing people looking for votes in every corner they can. Their ideology is sinking and sinking fast, so they have to find a new group of people to hold them up. And what better than getting these migrants in here and giving them all sort of free stuff? And the stuff in free, it's costing me and you. And this is unbelievable, insane. This is insanity on steroids.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely crazy. But one of the other issues that we see, and it is something I kind of brought up just a little bit earlier when we talked about a lot of people migrating in for the wrong reasons because of socialism, that a lot of times the attitudes then of the migrants aren't necessarily the best. I mean, I'm sure there's some who have come in, who are working hard and who, have good attitudes, but there's some who may have come in for the wrong reasons, just for a free ride, right, from socialism. And some of these people don't necessarily have the best attitude. In fact, some of them want to change the way we live. So anyways, I thought it was kind of interesting during the World Cup. We had a whole bunch of people from other countries show up, but just to be here temporarily for entertainment. And they said wonderful things about the country. I mean, a lot of them were really happy to be here for a lot of reasons. And yet you see a lot of the people who are here on the socialism, they're kind of demanding that we change everything about our country to accommodate them. And so I have this montage. I thought this would, maybe help set the stage for that. Anyways, let's just watch it. We can talk about it.
Well, World Cup fans are not just enjoying soccer, they're enjoying the heck out of America. Fans from Scotland to Germany to Japan are going viral, posting rave reviews of our way of life and our food.
Bite. That's your first ever bite of Texas barbecue. What do you think?
Amazing! Hey, that's a shark.
I love it! They have a blue cheese ranch, buffalo ranch, which was also sensational. I loved it. A spicy ranch. Tell you, all of these are absolutely sensational.
So excited about arriving at Bucky's. I'm going to put these in my suitcase and fly them back to Scotland.
So James Klug, a prominent podcaster, was also out on the street getting a lot of responses from the soccer tourists as well.
Didn't expect it to be as good as this, to be honest.
Unbelievable. And I mean unbelievable.
Is the media misrepresenting how Americans are?
Back home, 100%. They're the nicest people in the world. They're so open, like chatting and all that.
The police have been really kind, really helpful.
I think we're happy to come over anytime you guys want.
Genuinely, you guys want us. If you put up with us, we'll come.
In New York, among, I guess, the current big push for Mamdani and Islam, the fans had a slightly different reaction that were there.
Popular internet streamer Sneeko had some fiery remarks during an Egyptian soccer celebration in New York City. Take a look.
Takbir! Allahu Akbar! Oh no! This is the Islamic Republic of New Yorkistan. Islam will be in every household. Inshallah, the whole world is Muslim. Welcome to Mamdani's New York. You see the city? You see how it looks? Inshallah, your city looks just like this too.
It seems there are many Islamic migrants who've come in lately who would like to see Sharia laws take over, which are kind of antithetical to our Bill of Rights.
Should Sharia law be over the U.S. Constitution?
Yes, the U.S. Constitution, which is made by people, and the Sharia law is made by Allah. So that is all the way above. That has to be definitely in the land, not for the America, for the whole world, would be above.
So that should be above the U.S. Constitution.
Yes.
During the Biden administration, when they just let people through pretty much unchecked, we had a lot of criminals come through as well.
T.A. Bragg, why did you not ask for bail? Why didn't you ask for bail for these migrants?
District Attorney Alvin Bragg trying to get away from questions about his decision to release 5 illegal migrants charged with assaulting 2 NYPD officers in Times Square that was caught on camera. All 5 were released without bail, even though they are charged with a felony. Now 4 of them have reportedly fled the state.
And with Trump's attempts to try to deport some migrants, there is a massive pushback in the migrant communities in places like Los Angeles.
Protesters were back out on the streets for the 3rd consecutive day. President Trump deployed some 2,000 National Guard members in response to violence and chaos in the city. Those troops descended on the streets of L.A. Governor Gavin Newsom is blasting the move, calling it, quote, purposefully inflammatory.
Protests ballooning over a big portion of downtown L.A. and onto the 101 freeway, shutting it down. Hundreds of National Guard troops now on the streets to deal with the clashes along with members of the LAPD and the California Highway Patrol. This video shows a protester throwing rocks at federal vehicles leaving the area. Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino asking the public for help in identifying the person. Mayor Karen Bass speaking out.
I was hoping to prevent this situation from happening. I was trying to.
And so there you saw people not just protesting, but waving the flags of other countries.
Yeah. We can't have your U.S. flag flying. You know, we have to have the Mexican flag, flying. Yeah. And Karen Bass, that incompetent piece of crap, talking about, I was hoping to prevent this thing. You're encouraging these people to come here. You're offering them all sort of free stuff. What do you think is going to happen when these people feel entitled to our labor? What do you think is going to happen? Exactly what we are seeing there. Okay? These people protesting. That's protesting. You're taking rocks and throwing at vehicles, at law enforcement vehicles. That is protesting. You're beating up a police officer. That is protesting. This is what has come to. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Those are mostly peaceful protesters. I'm sorry. I forgot that. God.
Imagine being a migrant, somebody whose identity is in question. You are arrested for attacking a police officer like we saw in that video. I mean, there's no confusion there. There was a gang of migrants beating the crap out of 2 police officers on the ground while they were, and then you don't even hold them. You release them without bail because you're in an insane Blutopian hellhole, New York, right? So you just release the criminals back on the street. And of course, oh wow, they didn't stick around to stand trial. I don't understand what's going on. Of course, they didn't leave the country. They just
what a surprise! What a surprise! You know, you could have just imagined the outrage if those police officers who were getting beaten badly, had drew their guns and shot two of these guys, which they were entitled to do given the assault that was being placed upon them. It's on video. You could imagine the outrage from the left. Oh my God, white supremacy, this and that, and all the other damn nonsense we would have heard about all the police brutality and all that kind of stuff. The policemen are being beaten. Look at it, it's on the video. But still, they're going to tell us about white supremacy, police brutality, and all those other things. You know, we had a case of, her name was Good, her last name was Good. I don't remember her first name. It might have been Lisa Good or something. The car was turning into she was turning a car. Well, first of all, nobody could explain to us why she thought it was necessary for her to enter an area of a police operation, police activities. Well, it was ICE agents. And when the police stopped and tried to talk to her, she was turning her vehicle into one of the police officers who was somewhat in front of the vehicle, and the police well, it was an ICE agent, shot her. And the left was so outraged by that. Really? What do you expect to happen when when there's law enforcement activity ongoing, law enforcement operations ongoing, and you want to interfere with that? What right do you have to do that? Yeah. And then you get outraged when you have these sort of outcomes.
Yeah. And in that case of the Good shooting, the first shot went through the front of the windshield. So I mean, the cop very reasonably could assume that the car was potentially going into him. Now, it looked like she probably was trying to just get away in the end, but the cop couldn't possibly know what's going to happen 2 seconds down the line. He can only know when those wheels are spinning and the car is pointed at him. So,
right. You see, and this is an important point you're raising, Jason, is that a police officer on the street has a split second to make a decision that involves his life or involves major injury to him. He has a split second to make that decision. Now, you and I, after the fact, could look at the video and say, well, maybe it wasn't really turning towards him. Maybe it might have been going here. Maybe this and maybe that. The police officer don't have that luxury. His life is on the line. Serious injury is on the line. So he have to make a decision. So I mean, I don't want police officers just shooting people at will or randomly or anything like that. I don't want that. But when the police officer has to make have a split second to make a decision, we have to give him some leeway to make that decision. It might involve in some tragic situations, but we have to give him that leeway because his life is on the line.
Yeah. Well, getting back to this particular issue, though, of the sports fans coming over, I did want to just kind of make the one little point before we leave the issue, though, is that when these people are coming over, I guess what are the incentives, I guess, right? And maybe this is why the experience is positive. They're coming over to be entertained, right? Mm-hmm. They're coming over. They know that they're going to pay somebody for that entertainment. So, it's a virtuous thing. They're going to be served with entertainment, and they're going to serve somebody else by paying them. There's this double thank you, and that's kind of what we're seeing, that people were all so happy to be here, and the experience is better than what they thought it would be, which is why they were all these people being interviewed were also ecstatic, because as some of these people were indicating, the press they were getting in their own country was, oh, America, they've got a lot of problems there.
Oh, yes.
You don't want to be there. You want to be here where we're, turning it into a complete Blutopian hellhole.
Hellhole. Yes. I mean, you talk about turning into a utopian hellhole. Just look at Great Britain right now. Part of the cradle of Western civilization. I mean, you go into East London. I've never been there, but I've read a lot about it and seen pictures about it. You go into East London, you'll swear in some third world country. I mean, the place is pretty bad if you believe the pictures and believe the stories that they're getting out of here. The mayor is he's a British citizen but of Pakistani descent, and you see this guy you're showing on the video talking about Allahu Akbar, whatever the hell it is, and that kind of stuff. Oh, a lot of that is going on in London right now. Those same Pakistani Muslims are deeply involved in a grooming gang situation where they're talking about 250,000, that's with a T, 250,000 white British girls were groomed and raped and tortured. That's in a report. I'm not making up; those are not my words. It's in the report that was put out by a politician in Great Britain. So you compare that to the other Europeans who were here, who were talking about the wonders of being here in America, of all the vastness, all the things in our groceries that are available, and all that kind of stuff, and how wonderful it is to be here.
We even have air conditioning, Who knew?
And we have air conditioning. There we go. And compare that to some of these people with their Islamic ideologies that they want to impose upon us. I mean, this is insane. This is horrible. We got to do something about this nonsense. We want immigrants. I have no problem with immigrants, but I don't want immigrants coming here to think they have a right to change our way of life. No, thank you. I don't want no part of that.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, get back to the sort of the Milton Friedman idea. If there's no expectation from the migrant when they're coming, then it's going to be a mutually beneficial exchange, or they're going to leave, right? But we've got a situation where it's not mutually beneficial, and then we can't get rid of them.
Yeah, right, exactly. I know. The Supreme Court tells us if you're born in the U.S. or it doesn't matter, you're an American citizen.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy. God help us.
Yeah. Well. So I just thought, the incentives, you get the incentives right and everybody's having a good time. You get the incentives wrong and nobody's going to be very happy in the long run and probably going to fall apart. So, but, on a kind of a side issue, we were seeing those flags, flying and, by protesters of other countries. And this is, something we've seen in a lot of the protests. In fact, we were showing a video from the UK the other day where a British police officer snatches the Union Jack from a girl who is trying to protest for, I guess for nationality in her country. And then you have these pro-Palestinian protesters flying a Palestine flag right on the other side of the protest wall, and they're snatching her flag and they're letting the other side fly theirs, which is kind of nuts. But this is, we saw some of the crazy stuff, with people burning Waymos and flying the flags of other countries. And by the way, it's not just this. You see this happening as well with other countries, like in Minnesota. They have almost fashioned their state flag to look like the Somali flag, which is pretty nuts. I didn't bring a picture of that one. Maybe I'll find one before the show's over. But another weird thing too is that we are seeing government buildings fly flags of like stuff that has nothing to do with the government, like the pride flag. And here, in the school districts are, here, this is Sacramento, the Cerna Center, which is, I guess where the Sacramento City Unified is headquarters to, flying. And the damn flag changes every 2 minutes, but that is the pride flag, I guess, for the moment. The colors are always changing. I never know maybe it's with the alphabet keeps changing this part of it. But the point is that why is a flag that we're in no contract to, that we have no compact that we've all agreed to, why is a government building flying this stuff, right? I mean, it makes no sense. And I mean, I'm not one to say that everybody should necessarily be marching necessarily to blindly behind a flag, but the idea that we're having all of these flags flown in our face that have nothing even to do with, at least with our government, we have a common charter that we're all under. Yes.
Yes.
We're supposed to clearly all believe in the Constitution, and that's kind of what that flag is supposed to be a symbol of.
The symbol of, yes.
Yes, and so that's why, maybe we can fly that at our government buildings. But the idea that you're going to fly all of these other flags have nothing to do with it. I mean, we're just running these things up the flagpole. But it is funny that some people like Sonny Hostin, who aren't triggered by the pride flag, but they're very triggered by the American flag. We have a little clip of that.
But before you leave this topic, I just want to say one thing. The fact that we see in all these like foreign flags and like in this case the pride flag going up on government buildings and all that kind of stuff is a very larger problem. Is the extent to which wokeness have infected even our government, and now we see in the end result of these things where you're seeing flags that we have no connection to, just like you say, none whatsoever. We have no connection to these flags, at least on a wider basis. But you see them on top of government buildings. You've seen them fly next to the U.S. flag, which is the flag that many people have fought and died to protect. But we've seen all of these strange flags next to them. This is the problem of wokeness that have infected the very heart of government. And this is a serious problem that we must deal with. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just seeing if I could pull an image of that whole. Okay, so here is I guess a Fox page where they have the image of the. So it looks like on the left is the Minnesota state flag, and on the right is the Somali flag.
Right.
So
yes.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're exact matches. I mean, they clearly don't seem like they're exact, but I guess they are kind of conspicuously similar.
Yeah, you can see some similarities. Similarities definitely occurred, yes.
I had to close that because some audio was coming through on the thing that I didn't want to have. But anyways, yeah. But so you can see though that this is kind of ridiculous. That we were having all these situations of government buildings flying flags that really don't have anything to do with our charter. But as I was saying before, Sonny Hostin, I guess, is. She had a recent piece on her show The View where they were talking about this white militia group or something. They really looked like something out of Central Casting, that SPLC false flag brigade, you might call them. I guess was drummed. Oh darn it, they don't have any pictures here of that, but anyways, yeah, they just sort of show up right before elections. Nobody knows who they are, but they try and make them sound like they're on the Republican side because they're supposed to be white nationalists, but
of course
they just disappear right after the elections. They're gone.
Oh yes, man. Oh yes. Don't worry, they will. Yeah, they just got to they just have to give the Democrats on this. They got to gin up the racism, so we could get some votes, and then they'll disappear. Don't worry. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, but these things do manage to get under the skin of people like Sonny Hostin, who are just looking for that kind of fuel. And here's what she had to say on her show about the American flag, which well, let's just hear it and then we can talk about it.
I said this on this show many, many years ago, because this is my 10th year on the show, and I said there are times when I walk into a community and I see American flags all over the community, and I suddenly feel unsafe because there is a section of this country that has co-opted the American flag, and they equate being an American or an American flag with white supremacy.
So there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, does this mean that if I see anybody with a Mexican flag, then that I should be automatically concerned that they believe in Mexican supremacy, and therefore I should be just as scared as Sonny is?
Well, according to Sonny, you shouldn't. According to Sonny, you should, Jason. Yeah. It's on you if you don't. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and we see protesters on campuses, and they've got pro-Palestinian flags. They're carrying the Palestinian flag. Should I suddenly be concerned that they're going to blow somebody up? Right. I mean, that's the kind of logic that you would have to assume, right?
Yes.
Sonny Hostin's thing. But yeah, it just seems absolutely nuts. I mean, at a time when there should be, if there's one thing that we can all get around, it should be the Constitution of the country. That's what we're all supposed to share in a rough agreement with together.
Sure, of course.
And what is supposed to be the symbol of that? It's supposed to be our flag, right? I mean,
exactly, exactly.
And so, I mean, if we can't at least even say, hey, it's okay for people to celebrate with the flag of our country, I mean, how are we even supposed to, how are we even supposed to proceed with this? Right? I mean, how is this union supposed to stay together if there's some people who are kind of hard to even see our flag?
Yeah, the left and Sonny Austin is clearly on the left. They're finding great ways to divide us and separate us. So Sonny Austin is an American citizen, as far as I know. And she think the flag, the U.S. flag, the United States flag, is a threat to her. She feels unsafe when she sees it. Now, I'm wondering if this little fool have ever traveled to a foreign country and where she saw the flag of a foreign country. Did she feel unsafe in those times? Did she ever see people having their flag out or anything? And did she feel unsafe? I bet you the little fool did not. I'll bet you that she never felt unsafe by seeing the flag of someplace else. And I bet you the little fool never felt unsafe when she saw all these protesters running around with Palestinian flags and with Mexican flags and all these sort of other flags running around. And and you spoke about the fact about the pride flag. That don't bother her. That does not bother her. But seeing the US flag, oh my God, I'm going to be so unsafe. Oh, they might come out and shoot me. Okay? That's what Sonny is saying. But this little fool apparently have lost her marbles if she ever had any. Because how you could live in a country and say the flag of that country is a threat to you. You know what I want to do? I want to give Sonny a gift. I'll pay for it out of my own personal wealth. I wouldn't even ask the government for a penny to give her this gift. I'll give her a one-way ticket to North Korea. Sonny, anytime you want it, you can have that. I'll give you a one-way ticket to North Korea. Don't come back. Just don't.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I doubt she's going to take you up on that. So I think you're going to wind up kind of holding your breath for a long time.
Yeah, I better not. I better not. You're not talking about that.
It did remind me, though. Sorry, what's that, Leon?
No, talking about that, there were several celebrities who are talking about leaving America if Trump became president. I think it's only one of them actually did it. I think Rosie O'Donnell, I think, is the only one who actually left, and she's in Ireland right now. But nobody else, as far as I know. I mean, a whole ton of them will talk about, we leave in America if Trump becomes president. We leave in America if Trump becomes president. And I don't think any one of them, besides Rosie O'Donnell, have actually done it. But all of them, I'll give them a one-way ticket to North Korea. I will. I'm seriously. Just don't come back. Don't, please. Yeah. Don't come back.
Yeah. You got to make sure you have a bulletproof contract, like something like the Constitution.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I don't want them to do like them illegal aliens and sneak over the border either. You're right. I don't want that. No.
That did remind me of real quick before we move on to the Knucklehead Noise Patrol, though. But we have a woman who is about to become a representative now. Lisa Avila Chevalier, and she's one of these sort of Mom Donnie's commies, I guess you'd call her. and I mean, she's literally a commie, right? I mean, she organized like a sort of a communist type of group, I think, when she was in college, and she's never disavowed that stuff. But she's not that far out of college either, I don't think. So,
yeah, I think she's like I think in her late 20s, early 30s, I think. I don't remember. Yeah,
she's fairly young. But anyways, this is a Snopes article, and it talks about the fact that, hey, she once tweeted that she she couldn't find a napkin, so she used the American flag to wipe her hands. And this is literally who the people are on the left, right? I mean, this is who we're trying to have a partnership with in this country. And it just, this is, I guess, one of the aspects I kind of wanted to touch on with America 250 and the birthright citizenship is that some of the stuff that's happening is so crazy in this country. Can we make it to another 250? Right? I mean, we have it's like, imagine two people who are married and they completely don't get along with each other. I mean, that they really, want to do bad things to the other side. I mean, that's what we constantly see is sort of happening. I mean, certainly people on the left would like to judge you by your color today. I mean, that's literally what they want to do. In fact, we'll even see that in the Knucklehead Noise Patrol.
Yes.
but and that's how they determine your moral fortitude is based upon your identity and your gonads, or what you imagine your gonads should be. That's right. It's your sort of both your real and imagined identities are everything to them. and it's sort of like we're the madness that we're seeing here. I mean, we've got issues of men being forced into women's sports. Now, if you're in a libertarian society, there might be a way around that where if the government's out of it, you just let people figure it out voluntarily. I have a feeling there won't be many situations where men are going to get to play in women's sports, but hey, that's what people want. But why should the government be forcing that, right? And that's the situation we have right now. Guy wants to wear a dress and suddenly he gets to beat the crap out of women.
Women, yes.
So, you have these situations of being forced to pay for all kinds of welfare, both and even welfare to the rich, or maybe military welfare around the world, all kinds of things, right, that we're being forced into. And we're getting to a point where I'm not sure, with the way government has grown, we have a 40 trillion. I haven't even checked in the last month. Are we over 40 trillion now? Are we at 41 trillion? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think we just over 40 million, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Okay, so 40 trillion and growing fast. And
yes,
it's just one thing after another seems to be. We have people who are telling us that they shouldn't have to show an ID to vote, but trust us, bro. We're doing it right. Trust me, bro. Right? I mean, this is literally becoming an untenable situation. Democrats are taxing people like crazy to the point where they're physically moving out of states and migrating to other places. And they're trying to figure out then ways, because things like their wealth taxes are driving people out of their jurisdiction. So they just want to make the entire jurisdiction that way. These are things that are starting to become untenable. And will we survive another 250 years if this keeps going this way? What are your thoughts on that, Leon?
I know. Of course, we always try to look into the future and see what we think is going to happen and how it's going to happen. And I believe we can look at history and look at our past. And if you look back in history, the one thing that you can say definitively, good always win against evil. And a lot of what the Democrats are proposing these days is downright evil, quite frankly. Is certainly immoral, if not downright evil. And yes, it's time we on the liberty-minded, we're gonna lose some battles along the way. I think we're losing some right now, as a matter of fact, with the rise of the Democrat Socialists of America. I think we are losing some battles there. But in the long run, I think good will always prevail. And I think we on the side of liberty will eventually prevail. I mean, when this country was founded, a country founded in liberty, it had a major contradiction in its founding, which was the issue of slavery. And the founders were well aware of it. It took some time for the emancipation to eventually occur. It took a civil war, but it did happen. Even after the Civil War, we had Jim Crow. It took another 90 years before Black Americans were truly free to vote and to freely occupy jobs and to freely go about their business as full Americans. But the fact of the matter is, good prevailed. Good always prevail over evil. And I think the next 250 years will be no different. We're going to have some battles to fight. But if we believe in this country, in that flag, in the raising of our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, then good have to win. And I think it will.
Well, it's funny. I'm not quite as optimistic as you are. I do think that if people are sort of left free for an invisible hand to do its work, I think good will prevail. But if we keep grasping for the hand of government, I mean, we've seen so many countries fall. We've seen empires fall. We saw the Roman Empire fall. We saw what was it? The place where democracy was,
Greece.
I guess, invented in Greece. I mean, they fell too to one of their neighbors, and the British Empire ruled the world at one point, and now they can't even. They're kind of like starting to become almost a third world country at this point. They can't even run air conditioners in their country, and they're it's just nuts the kind of stuff that's going on. So to me, it does seem like, I would share your optimism. If people were allowed to be free, I think good will triumph because of the virtue of trying to deal voluntarily with each other. But if we're not allowed to be free, if these commies keep gaining ground, I don't know. I mean, I think it's we've had a lot of positive things, like the internet have allowed ideas of people like Milton Friedman and Mises and others to grow out there so that people can see, I guess, better ways to do things. But people keep grasping for more government education, and government education has been an absolute failure. It just, we've talked about it before on the show, but California, 25% proficiency in 8th grade math. I mean, that's in like 30% in reading. This is nuts, right? I mean, that is catastrophic failure, right, of an educational system. That's not just a little bit of failure. That's catastrophic. We've talked before about how bad some of these other states are, like in Baltimore, where they had 5 or 13 schools where not a single kid was proficient in math, right? Yes. I mean, this is absolutely nuts, right? But this is where we're going, as we keep going in for more and more government. Of course, Democrats, that's their ideology, is more and more government, right? So clearly we got to get away from them. But
I know, Jason. I know it's easy. It's very easy for us to look around us right now and see where these socialist, communist people, Mamdani's commies, as you rightfully call them, and you can see them gaining ground. Okay, I'm not going to dispute that. You can look at the debt and say, dear God, how are we going to get out of this one? I mean, we're about 40 trillion right now. And you can look at all the divisions that the Democrats are sowing in our society. But I am saying, at the end of the day, I believe in the human spirit. And the human spirit have always been a force for good. Sure, we have some bad characters among us, that is true. But the human spirit is always a force for good. And we're going to lose some battles along the way. That part I totally agree with. But I don't think in the long run, I really don't think in the long run, these things, these immoral things, these evil things at times, could prevail. There's no way that the human spirit will tolerate this, given our love of freedom and our love of liberty. Yes, we have gone a long way from our founding, but we have to renew that, and I think we will one day. We will, and we probably will go through this cycle a few more times, but we'll survive. I think good will prevail.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, on a kind of a funny note, let's talk about one more bit of insanity on the way out with our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. But in New Jersey, about a month ago, they had an ICE facility where ICE protesters were outside, essentially, protesting Trump's immigration policies and deportation policies. And they kind of betrayed their hand about maybe a little bit how they really think. They're sort of rabid identity politics. And we'll kind of show you the video and see if you can kind of figure out what's going on here. So.
Over, bitch! Bend the fuck over! Bend over for Trump! Bend over for her!
Hold on, I'm gonna trump over.
Oh shit, open it, open it! They work here! They work here, dumbass!
I'm gonna trump over.
They work here!
That's trump over.
That's racist. They just assume. Yeah, they just assume that they got racist.
So later that day, after their mistaken identities, the protesters got two people out who they wanted to see come out, and then they started to argue with them.
Guys, I want to say something. Geo company, not the ICE. ICE different, Geo company different. No. Geo company is company. They put billions of dollars into the Nazis administration. Bullshit. Bullshit. They are good people.
So, anyways, that first part of that clip, though, it was two ICE employees were leaving, but because brown skin, the crowd just started cheering. Why?
Because they had the right skin color. Can't you tell?
Yeah. And I mean, the guards were literally having to. That's why you saw the guards clapping at the end, because they were having a good laugh at the fact that the ICE protesters were just cheering for a few of their own as they left the building. All because they're essentially racist, right? They don't know who these people are. They just see the skin color, and they make.
That's exactly right. Yes. Yeah. And these are the fools who think they're gonna save people who look like me. They're gonna save us. These fools, they're gonna save us. Oh God, they are such nice, wonderful people. And you could probably look at the crowd, and they're probably gonna see the offers. You know what the offers are? AWFL, affluent, white, female liberals. That's what they're gonna see there. A bunch of them. They're always trying to save somebody with their racist attitudes. God help us. These are our saviors. Yeah, I know. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, here's to hoping that we have another good 250 before us. I know that there's some, troubles, and we've talked about that on the show. But, Leon, I don't know. You have any last thoughts about Adam Smith before we leave? I mean, I think, the one thing I think that is cool about all this is that his ideas at least have managed to be demonstrated to some degree with our country. And I think there's some progress, and we have a guy in Argentina named Javier Milei who is the president there, and he is a avowed free market capitalist, libertarian, Austro-libertarian. So so clearly some of these ideas are making it out. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, you raise Milei in Argentina, and this was a country that had gone dark. They had military dictatorship, and then they had this socialist garbage. And we see Milei come in, and he is really doing some good things in bringing the country back. And this is what I'm talking about. Yes, We're going to lose some battles along the way. But people like Malay will rise up, And you see that invisible hand that we keep talking about? That is the human spirit at work, which I have full confidence in, because we love liberty and we love freedom. And that invisible hand will always take us to the side of good. Freedom and liberty are too intrinsic in our souls for us to give it up to these fools. So that's why I am sure it will prevail in the end. So I have full confidence of that. We'll have people like Malay. It may take 10 people like Malay eventually to get it done, but eventually it will be done. Freedom and liberty is going to win. The invisible hand will always win.
Well, thanks so much for listening to us. And, you know, if you're watching, think about what you can do in your community to unshackle the invisible hand there so we can make some progress. Because government's doing its best job to try and keep that invisible hand down with the very visible fist of government.
Very good. Very good.
So let's you know, think about what you can do, because everybody can be doing something, and we can't be sitting on the sidelines, because you know, every day they seem to be coming more and more for your freedoms. So, you know, do your part, and until the next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.